Okay, picture this. You're stepping onto a golf course that offers two completely different climates and 3 centuries of history, all packed into a single 18-hole round. Today, we're taking a journey to a place where the ocean breeze meets severe mountain elevation and where pop culture legends collide with centuries-old Jamaican stories. Do you have what it takes to conquer two totally different landscapes in a single 18-hole journey? Welcome to The Explainer. If you're into understanding the brilliant design and strategy behind world-class sports destinations, well, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we are unpacking the dual personality of Cinnamon Hill Golf Course, right down in Jamaica's historic Rose Hall estate. You know, most courses have this one recognizable vibe, from the first tee to the 18th green. But Cinnamon Hill? It completely flips the script right in the middle of your round.
Section 1. A Course of Two Halves. Let's dive right into this incredible spatial journey. But before we hit the fairways, let's look at some baseline stats. Cinnamon Hill was originally designed way back in 1969 by Hank Smedley, and then it got a redesign in 2001 by Robert Von Hegg and Rick Burrill. From the blue tees, you're looking at 6,828 yards playing to a par 72. But check out that course rating of 74.2 and a slope of 136. For the golfers tuning in, you know those numbers mean this gorgeous resort course has some serious teeth. It is a championship-level test. And the challenge? It doesn't just come from the yardage. It comes from an environment that is literally always shifting.
Honestly, the best way to understand Cinnamon Hill is to think of it as two totally separate courses just woven into a single round. The front nine, it's open, coastal, and has this almost lynx-like spirit to it. It is completely exposed to the winds coming off the Caribbean Sea. But then you hit the back nine, and it is a total contrast. Suddenly you're enclosed in this mountainous, heavily elevated terrain that is just packed with historical landmarks. Strategies that worked flawlessly on the outward nine, yeah, they might fall completely flat after the turn. Section 2. The Coastal Wind Challenge. So let's start exactly where the course starts, right beside the gorgeous but totally unpredictable waters of the Caribbean Sea. The coastline here is not just a pretty backdrop, guys. It is an active participant in your round. There's a great quote that captures this perfectly. At Cinnamon Hill, the wind is not something to defeat. It is something to understand. The coastal breeze is basically your principal hazard out here. Unlike a sand trap or a pond that just sits there, the wind is dynamic. It can shift speed and direction while your ball is literally in mid-flight. It might hold a drive up, blow an approach shot way off target, or force you to pull one or two extra clubs for a yardage you'd normally feel super comfortable with. And there is absolutely no better example of this coastal test than Hole 5, which is very appropriately named Majestic Blue. It's a 453-yard par 4 and serves as the seaside's signature hole. When you're standing out there on the fairway, it literally looks like the grass disappears straight into the Caribbean Sea. It is a masterpiece of visual intimidation. Your first real challenge on this hole is just pure visual discipline. It is so incredibly easy to get distracted by that pristine white sand and the swaying palms. Totally lose focus on your target and just launch your golf ball straight into the ocean. So how do we actually play this? Well, strategy is everything. The wind you're feeling on your face at ground level, that's not always the wind messing with your ball at its apex. You really have to look up and watch the upper branches of those palm trees to see what the breeze is actually doing. And if you've got a local caddy, trust their read over your own every single time. Most importantly, when you're hitting into crosswinds, experienced players know that fighting a strong wind just creates way more problems. Swinging harder? That just adds spin and balloons the ball up higher. Instead, you want to use a nice, controlled swing and just take an extra club.
Section 3. Climbing the Jamaican Mountains. As we make the turn to the inward nine, the entire vibe of the course shifts dramatically upwards. We leave the shoreline completely behind and start climbing up into the lush enclosed interior of the historic Rose Hall estate. And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer scale of that climb, 350. By the time you reach the 17th tee, you are standing an incredible 350 feet above the Caribbean Sea. Think about that. The ocean that felt close enough to touch on the front nine is now this sweeping, distant panorama stretching across the Jamaican coastline way down below.
That brings us to Hole 17 itself, a 535-yard par 5, which presents a really fascinating strategic dilemma. That massively elevated tee naturally screams at you to be aggressive, right? I mean, a ball launched from 350 feet up is going to stay in the air forever. That incredible view just tempts you to swing right out of your shoes. But hold on, because the back nine demands absolute pinpoint accuracy. The corridors are much tighter up here, and the bunkers are very strategically placed. If you lip an aggressive drive without a hyper-specific target, you can easily find yourself in a really messy spot. The smartest players figure out their strategy, like whether they're going for the green in 2 or playing it safe to lay up for a 3-shot par 5 before they even take their practice swing.
Section 4. Hollywood and Historic Echoes.
As we navigate these mountain holes, we are essentially walking right through time. That perfectly manicured turf sits directly on top of a seriously deep cultural tapestry. Let's look at the timeline of the Rose Hall property. Long before golf was even a thought, this land was heavily shaped by sugarcane. In fact, while you play, you'll pass an old stone aqueduct with markings dating all the way back to 1761. It's a physical remnant of Jamaica's plantation economy. Now, the source material respectfully notes that this history carries some very painful realities, as the plantation system was entirely dependent on enslaved labor. Acknowledging this definitely gives the setting a profound and somber context. Fast forward quite a bit to 1969, and Hank Smedley maps out the original golf routing. Then, just 4 years later, in 1973, Hollywood comes knocking to shoot a James Bond film right on site. Finally, in 2001, Von Hagenbarrel refined the layout into the strategic puzzle it is today.
Now, what's really interesting about this is how that Hollywood history crashes directly into the golf architecture. Enter Hole 15, famously known as the Waterfall Challenge. Guys, this is a breathtaking 220-yard par 3 featuring a natural, cascading waterfall right behind the putting surface. Just imagine the sound of the rushing water, the cool mountain air, and the sheer daunting length of a 220-yard carry. It is an absolute sensory overload.
And that exact waterfall? Yep, you guessed it. It was heavily featured in the 1973 James Bond film Live and Let Die, starring Roger Moore. But the pop culture lore doesn't even stop with 007. Just nearby is the Cinnamon Hill Great House, which was the longtime Jamaican retreat of country music legends Johnny Cash and June Carter Cash. It's such a surreal contrast, right? You're standing there analyzing modern GPS yardages, but you're completely surrounded by the echoes of an 18th century stone aqueduct, a legendary James Bond film set, and the actual home of the Man in Black.
Section 5. Planning your round. So, you've seen the coast, the mountains, and the rich history. If you are feeling inspired to plan a sports travel itinerary to Jamaica and tackle Cinnamon Hill for yourself, first and foremost, consider getting a local caddy. While it's technically optional, hiring one totally transforms your round from a simple game of golf into a fully guided, sensory journey. A local caddy doesn't just haul your clubs around, they know exactly how those tricky coastal winds behave. They can read those deceptive mountain greens. They'll give you absolutely crucial elevation adjustments. And honestly, they are incredible storytellers who bring the history of the aqueducts and the great house to life right there on the fairway.
Next up, make sure to follow these crucial steps for a successful visit. Step 1, obviously, book your tee time well in advance through Rose Hall Golf. Step 2 is absolutely vital, so listen up. Choose the appropriate tees. That 6,828-yard layout from the blue tees can quickly become an unplayable chore for recreational golfers, especially when that coastal wind kicks up. By choosing the shorter tees, you preserve the architectural strategy of the course, meaning you actually get to manage risk instead of just desperately swinging out of your shoes to cover distance. And step 3, master the mental test of separating your landscape appreciation from your shot concentration. Take your photos, soak in the views between shots for sure, but when you step up to address the ball, lock in entirely.
Because at the end of the day, as this quote just beautifully summarizes, the score matters. So does remembering where you are. Yes, Cinnamon Hill is a serious championship test, but the ultimate goal of destination golf is to completely soak in that incredible environment. It's about taking a moment to appreciate the Caribbean stretching out behind the green, the stone aqueduct emerging from the past, and that sweeping mountain view. Your scorecard is just one tiny record of the day. The memories are the real prize.
To wrap things up, I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder. If you could only drop a golf ball on one of these signature holes, which one would you choose? Would you try to calculate that fierce coastal crosswind on hole 5? Would you try to dial in a 220-yard carry right over the James Bond waterfall on hole 15? Or would you launch an epic drive into the sky from the mountaintop on hole 17? Think about what club you would pull from your bag. That's the real magic of an explainer like this. It leaves you eager to step out and experience the strategy for yourself. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive into Cinnamon Hill.